Once upon a time, there lived a young girl named Ego. Ego had a talent for cooking that was unmatched by anyone in the village. She grew up with her grandmother, who taught Ego all she knows. Her dishes were delicious, that people from near and far came to the market square where she sells food, just to eat at her food stand. Every morning, she prepared her meals with care, adding just the right ingredients and stirring each pot with love. People would line up, eagerly waiting to taste whatever she had prepared for the day. Living nearby was Ego's friend and neighbor, Buchi. At first, Buchi had been happy for her friend and eagerly tried to learn from her sometimes. But as Ego's popularity grew, a shadow of jealousy darkened Buchi's heart. She watched with envy as villagers praised Ego's cooking and spoke about her as the best cook in the land. Buchi longed for the same admiration and attention, and she began to wonder what Ego's secret was. Maybe she is using some form of dark magic or recipes, Buchi said as she thought out loud one day. That evening, Buchi decided to find out. She waited until Ego began to cook in her backyard. She quietly crept behind the trees, hoping to see the secret ingredient that made Ego's food so special. But try as she might, Buchi heard or saw nothing unusual. Ego was simply humming to herself and cooking with joy, as she always did. Buchi grew frustrated and started hatching a plan. I must find a way to remove Ego from the village entirely, so I could take her place as the most celebrated cook, she muttered to herself. In a week's time, the queen announced a royal cooking contest, with the winner to be crowned the royal chef. Everyone was excited, and some people already knew that Ego would end up emerging the winner. Buchi was ecstatic and nervous as well. I really deserve this big shot, but that girl Ego would be my only roadblock, she said. Buchi saw this as her chance. If only she could get rid of Ego, she would surely win the contest and earn fame and fortune. After a month, the first round of the competition commenced. There were 10 registered competitors, and only 3 would move to the finals. Ego was relaxed as she was going to make a delicious pot of oha soup, using her grandmother's recipe. Buchi stood opposite Ego and stared at her with so much anger. She was determined to do everything it takes to ensure that Ego does not emerge the winner. The competition commenced and the candidates got to work. Some were making local dishes and others foreign dishes. Ego gracefully hummed her song while she prepared oha soup, while Buchi was making a pot of egusi soup. At the end of the competition, the queen was to announce the candidates that would move to the finale. The ladies lined up in front of the crowd, and the queen announced. After much deliberations by the judges, Ego, Oma, and Buchi will be moving to the finale. The crowd erupted into an applause, and Ego rushed to Buchi, her friend, to give her a hug, not knowing that Buchi was boiling with rage at her success. The next day, Buchi sat in front of her house, restless. She wasn't even focused on her achievement of making it to the final round of the competition. She was so consumed by envy that her whole mind and heart was focused solely on making sure her friend Ego fails. Should I tamper with her ingredients? What can I possibly do to eliminate Ego from this competition? Buchi paced from one corner of her compound to the other, strategizing ways to make her friend fail. Meanwhile, Ego was immersed in her practices, trying out new spices, herbs, recipes, in order to decide the best meal to make on the day of the finale. One day, as Buchi laid on her bed, still orchestrating her plan in her head, an idea struck her. She jumped from her bed excitedly and headed over to Ego's house. She approached Ego with a fake smile, pretending to be supportive and friendly. Ego, my friend. Ego, my dear friend. I found a spot in the forest that has a lot of new and secret herbs that could make our dishes even more delicious, she said, her voice sweet and treacherous. It's hidden deep in the forest, and it's rumored that whoever uses those herbs to make a pot of food, even kings dare not reject the food. But I don't need some secret or unknown herbs to cook, my friend. I may not have use for it, Ego replied gently. Buchi thought for a while on how best to lure Ego to go with her, since it seemed her plans were already failing. But Ego, can't you accompany me as your friend? You may not need the secret herbs or ingredients, but I do. I am not a talented cook as you, Buchi responded, trying to lure Ego with blackmail. Ego, being a trusting and kind-hearted person, smiled back, her eyes lighting up as she shrugged her shoulder. Okay, I'll accompany you. But since the competition is tomorrow morning, we must go right away and make it back in time to rest for the big day, Ego said. Oh, Ego, that sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for helping me. Let me go get ready, Buchi whispered with a slight grin on her face. At sunset, the two friends set off into the forest, which was known to be enchanted and mysterious. Buchi was holding a small lantern that cast light on the path. As they walked deeper into the woods, the trees grew taller, their twisted branches casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. Soon, they reached a clearing, and Buchi pointed to a path that led even deeper into the forest. The herb is just down that path, Buchi said, her voice a little shaky. Let's go. Unaware of Buchi's true intentions, Ego trusted her friend and walked down the path with her. But only after a few steps, Buchi turned to her and said, "Wait here. I need to put some dry leaves inside this lantern." Ego waited close to a bamboo tree, and Buchi started going back, without her knowledge. She was wiping the foot trails as she snuck out of the forest, leaving her friend stranded without light or any trails to retrace back to the village. After a while, everywhere was quiet and still. Ego felt uneasy and she called out to her friend. She screamed Buchi's name many times and no one answered. Ego's heart sank as she realized she had been betrayed. She tried to retrace her steps, but their foot trail had vanished. And all around her were thick trees, looking exactly the same. Ego wandered the forest, searching for a way out. But it seemed that every path led her deeper into the woods. Night fell deeper, and with it came a chilling sound of howling animals and rustling leaves. Ego huddled under a tree, feeling scared and alone, wondering why her friend could do this to her. Just then, a faint light appeared in the distance. Curious and hopeful, Ego followed the light until she reached a small clearing. In the center of it stood a mysterious woman dressed in a shimmering robe. "Why are you trespassing into my home?" she asked with a thunderous husky voice. Ego felt cold chills run down her spine. "Please, ma, I am lost. We came in here to look for special herbs and I lost my way. I do not mean to trespass," Ego said with shaky voice. "Herbs? There are no herbs made for cooking in this part of the forest. You must have been misled," the woman said thoughtfully. "Very well, young one. I can show you the way back. But first, you must complete a test to prove you are worthy of my assistance. Only then will you find your way out of this forest." Determined to make it back, Ego nodded, ready to face the challenge. For the test, the mysterious woman led Ego to a grove filled with small plants that smelled so nice, like anything she had ever smelled. "My son had been ill for many years now. He barely eats anything. I have tried many different recipes and meals, but nothing suits his taste. Can you try to make something from these ingredients and herbs?" the woman said, pointing at the herb plants. "If he eats it, I will show you the way out." Ego was a bit skeptical at this time, almost sweaty from anxiety. "But what if he doesn't like my food?" she stammered. "I will still reward you for the effort and show you the way out," the woman replied. This set Ego's mind at peace, and so she started to cook. She put firewood together and prepared a delicious pot of potato porridge with the ingredients the woman gave her. She served it in a wooden plate and presented to her. The woman took the plate and disappeared into the woods. Ego sat on a log of wood, awaiting the verdict, while praying silently for the woman's son. After a while, the mysterious woman reappeared with an empty plate, her face beaming with a bright smile. "Young woman, you have saved my son. He accepts your food." Ego was thrilled to not only hear that her skill has saved her, but most especially, it has saved someone's life. By this time, the sun was already rising. The mysterious woman held her hand and led her through a narrow, dark pathway until they arrived at the backyard of the palace. "Go now. The competition is about to begin," she said, pointing towards the queen's palace. Ego thanked her and hurried down the path, her heart racing with joy and relief. She reached the palace just in time for the royal cooking contest. As she approached, the villagers cheered loudly, glad to see her safe. Buchi was shocked when she saw Ego walking up to her stand, looking as strong and radiant as ever. She was already preparing her dish for the competition, smugly confident that she would win now that Ego was out of the way. Ego's reappearance disorganized her as she hid her face in shame. When the allocated time was up, the queen arrived, ready to judge the contest. Ego presented her dish, a savory stew made from fresh ingredients and spices, carefully balanced to perfection. Buchi too presented her dish. Her meal was bland and almost made the queen noxious. Unknown to Ego, the queen was the mysterious woman she cooked for while she was lost in the jungle, and the young prince is the son she had talked about. The queen announced to the village that Ego has been chosen as the royal chef. The queen also narrated how Buchi betrayed Ego by abandoning her all by herself in the forest so that she would miss out on the competition. "I am highly disappointed in you, Buchi," the queen said sternly. Buchi bowed her head in shame as the crowd gasped in shock at the revelation. Buchi was punished for her deceit. She was banned from cooking at the market, and she was to volunteer for community service for a whole year in reparation. As for Ego, she went on to live a happy life, cooking for the queen and her son, sharing her food with the people of her village. She remained humble, grateful for her gifts, and continued to pour her heart into every meal she prepared. This is the end of my story.